Good morning, and welcome to Opening the Door to the Unknown. I am your host, Dr. Clark Schmidt, or Magus1100. Depends on how you write me in to get to my site here. This morning I'm going to be giving a review of UFOlogy from chapter 1 to 15 of things that I didn't hit upon in the chapters. I'm not going to go say like chapter 1, I forgot about this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. It's going to be interesting and be a little fun. First of all, I like to make a couple corrections though. The corrections is that I did make mistakes in when I for information given. Okay, so let me take care of this matter, and then I'll start to get into the review section. Number one, I mentioned is that Skinwalker Ranch was in Nevada. I was wrong on that, but again, I'm not a walking encyclopedia, so I had to go back into the old memory banks up here, and it came to me is that Skinwalker Ranch is located in Utah. Second, I was trying to remember a name or two. The first name is that I did get Phil Klass, and I mentioned Phil Klass was editor of Aviation Weekly, and he was always one of the major skeptics on UFOs. I think more though that he was for disinformational, gave disinformation on the subject. I do feel is that even though I don't think is that he was mentioned in the aviary, I could be wrong, but like I said, Phil Klass was always one to disembark on adventures of disinformation on UFOs. Bob Lazar, I couldn't think of the name. Bob Lazar has been mentioned. Oops, sorry, keeping my coffee up like this. I do. I'm bad. Can't do that. So I will put it down. Okay, here we go. All right. Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar has been mentioned many years as working at Area 51 at I think at S3, working on back engineering of UFO on creating a UFO. I do believe is that now a lot of people say that Lazar doesn't have any proper credentials as being a nuclear physicist. The government naturally will do that, especially people who are classified as whistleblowers. They try to get rid of documentation on the people who come out, trying to give information to the public on what's going on. And Bob Lazar is one of them that say they can't find any information on, and so was Bill Schneider, who claimed that he was a geologist working over at Area 51 as well, and they couldn't prove that they couldn't really prove that he worked over there. But anyways, again, you can find Lazar and again Bill Schneider. Guess where? Just write their names in on YouTube and videos of them giving lectures will definitely come up. Now, like I said in my previous lectures, is that I usually don't go to YouTube to get the information because I think a lot of it is disinformational in certain regards. Okay, I think that that's kind of cheating. So, like I said, everything that I have talked about, especially in UFOlogy, has been up here, plus my own experiences. Um, so, but it's fun. But again, it is fun to listen to the people because they can give you how should I say more information on the subject. Like Bill Cooper, for an example. If anybody had a chance to read Behold a Pale Horse, and it's about it's about this thick, and really in depth of what he writes. Okay, he talks about the government, and he talks about the Averarian. He talks about MJ12 and about the Illuminati. In fact, again, all you got to do is just go to come here on YouTube, type in Bill Cooper, and all of a sudden you will get hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but you will get a lot of videos on his lectures. Now, just like just like Bill Schneider and Cooper, is that Bill Schneider was eliminated, like a lot of other UFO researchers, like Carla Turner, her husband, both came down with cancer. Schneider was shot. Was shot, and he predicted that. Um, Dr. Carl Jessup, back in the late 40s, was found dead in his car. They thought it was a suicide, which I don't think it was. It seems to me that the government always likes to get into the suicide, malarkey, unless it's more of a drowning, or a plane crash, or a plane, train, automobile being run over, caught in a fire. Again, the great one has always died by cancer or through a heart attack. Jumped out of a window again with suicide. Um, so, I mean, I really don't think it's like the government has really figured out any new ways of eliminating whistleblowers. I think what they do now is they just say is the guy or the person, the woman or the man who is doing the whistleblowing is a little nuts. Don't listen to that person. They have no idea what they're talking about. They were in a mental institution for a few years, and they can say is that we got found documents by this particular mental institution, which means is that naturally they created the incarceration as for that proof. Okay. Um, so it's again getting into the UFO field as either as a researcher or as an investigator is more, like I said, more dangerous than going to a supposedly haunted house with equipment as to try to capture spirit either on film or through EVP. It's more dangerous than people saying is working with the Ouija board. Um, it's more dangerous than saying is that a person is, how should I say, possessed by by a demon. It's one of those. Excuse me. It's one of those subjects that if you really want to take the chance on working and becoming a part of, then I say then I would say personally more power to you. Okay. That being said, um, again, the question is the question has always come up. When was actually the first UFO sighting? Sometimes I do seal flips, like I don't know, you got me, or I say as well, we can look at it in this perspective, and I didn't mention this during the history of, but could say is that the first time that a person had a close encounter, or just say close encounter of 1 to 4, would be in the Bible, written in the Bible, especially with Ezekiel when he was taken up into a UFO, and he classified when he first saw the UFO, he said a wheel within a wheel. Now a lot of people could say, well, like might even say a chariot. Okay, but he didn't say a chariot. He said a wheel within a wheel. Now, what does that denote? What's the connotation? That means like a cylinder. That means like a cylinder, not a cylinder, but I should say a elliptical UFO. Okay, like that. Um, and when he was beamed up, it was like boom with like with Travis Walton for an example, or like well, let's just say Travis Walton with the beam of light, bringing him up into the spaceship. Of course, in the book of Ezekiel, I don't remember if he really talked about what the occupants look like. Of course, a lot of people say is that sometimes they've been abducted by not the Greys or the more. I don't think there's been many abductions with the reptiles. More of the Greys. Um, but getting with the Nordics, for an example, say is that some people say is that people in the spaceship or the crafts that they've been abducted into, they say is that the people look like human beings, a little bit off, but roughly resembling the facial features of humans. So that tells me that's getting more into the Nordic type of EVE. Okay, but anyways, so I would have to say is that those going into the Bible is that either with a wheel within a wheel, like with Ezekiel, or like a chariot of fire, or like with the people say, well, I saw like a chariot of fire with people, you know, riding in it. Okay, so that would be my beginning point actual encounters of. Then I can say as well, you had paintings in the 16th century of objects painted in, by the painter, painting objects in the background that looked like UFOs. And then again, you can say, well, what about the Egyptians when they broke into archaeologists broke into the pyramids, and they happened to see the hieroglyphics on the walls with looked to me looked like a space looked like a spaceship of sorts and a man crouching down. So again, I would have to say going through centuries, and of course I did mention about Lemuria and also about Atlantis. Okay, um, so that would be, like I say, really the beginning point of the close encounters, and people actually drawing pictures or creating hieroglyphics or the written word on what they have experienced. Then the second question is, well, when was the when was there ever any trying to think here the word, was there any confrontations with UFOs? And I did mention going to back into 1941 in Los Angeles, California. So I would say that would be um, one of the confrontational confrontationals that we actually had with UFOs, or where we actually shot at them. But then again, if one even goes back, I know that this sounds crazy, okay, but if one even goes back to what was it, the 1930 with War of the Worlds with H.G. Wells, who wrote the book, but but with what's his first name? But with Wells and the Mercury Theater creating the invasion of War of the Worlds, is that people from the little town that the invasion supposedly was taking place were actually trying to shoot at non-existent beings. In fact, it was told is that people shot at the town's water reservoir, like the water tower, and put a few major holes in the damn thing to where they had to go and had to go and plug and had to refill the tower itself, which cost the town some buku bucks. Okay, so you have to. So again, the research, sometimes you have to backtrack a little bit. You just can't say as well. This this happened first, because then all of a sudden you remember. Oh, wait a minute. I do remember that something has gone back. Okay, like with the war. Like with Orson Welles, with the Mercury Theater, for an example, with War of the Worlds, or the book written by what was his name? Campbell, who wrote the book Who Goes There, which was created into the movies The Thing, for an example. Okay, and of course we can get back into the 50s, where you have people again like Van Tassel and George Hunt Williamson and Gray Barker and Ray Palmer and other people that wrote, that did a lot of James Mosley, that actually did, even uh, even a relative of mine named Brewster uh, was when I was doing research going back, I found out that a relative of mine was even mentioned um, in ufology. It seems that I had a few people, especially on the Brewster side of the family, that were into the esoterics or the meta esoterics or excuse me, or ufology for some reason. I think maybe that's how, maybe I had one of the genes that I, that even, how should I say, got me into the interest of, and not including, and that's also not including another relative of mine. Um, can't remember his name. That was also a in the Salem witch trials. He wasn't. I don't know. I forget if he was a judge out of the many judges, and he was a reverend. I do remember that much, and he was either defending or he was a part of the, again, part of the prosecution. I lost the information years ago, but some of this does stick into my mind. Okay, but now I'm beginning to get onto the left-hand path, you might say. So let me reverse and get back straight from whence I was walking. Great coffee. Okay, so that's the question: is when did we actually have a confrontation? I would say back in 1941, when the military in Los Angeles actually fired um, and a so-called had a so-called UFO. When was the first crash? When was the first crash of object? Well, again, here we can say here again. People say is well, getting into Roswell because that was and Aztec, New Mexico, because that's where they found so-called the bodies and the U and the destroyed objects, you might say. But then again, somebody can say, well, wait a minute, hold a minute, let's go back to 1897 to Aurora, Texas, to where there was a crash landing, and the townspeople found the bodies and didn't want to get really mixed up and be called lunatics, and so they just buried the bodies, and they said nobody should ever talk about it. Okay, now did it actually happen in Aurora? Answer is who knows. Where they buried the so-called bodies, the occupants is that they made sure that nobody could dig them up, because when they buried, they some with cement. Okay, so who's gonna take pickaxes and chip away at cement at a big cement block to try to see if there was really aliens buried where this so-called grave was located? Okay, so that's the reason why people say is that that's the reason why researchers say Aztec, New Mexico, and also Roswell. Okay, and you have to remember again, if we go 1 year prior, is getting with Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard with the Babylon workings, and that Parsons said is that Hubbard screwed up on the ritual, and that the woman of Babylon, or the whore, you might say, of Babylon, did appear 2 days later at Parsons' home, and he believed is that he did two things. He conjured the horror of Babylon, and also he said is that he opened portals to where the 1947 major flaps began to happen around the United States, especially at military bases. In fact, if you do research, you'll find that there's a lot of military bases that were buzzed by strange objects. Okay, so um, did Parsons and Hubbard actually open up these portals? Aleister Crowley believed it. Of course, again, as I mentioned, is that Crowley was contacted through LAM and through AWAS. And these two entities were by Crowley's drawings looked like the Greys. And again, yeah, also being mentioned a few times is with the three secret chiefs coming from the Himalayas, giving instruction and information to, say, like Madame Blavatsky and McGregor Mathers, and people believe still to this day that there are underground bases that are located, with caves that one enters to get down into the below earth tunnels. It's just like oh geez, I'm trying the Yeti, or like the Yeti, or the abominable snowman, or Bigfoot, or Stinkfoot. Okay, how come we really haven't found these creatures? Some people say is that they have saw them, but they could never find them. A lot of people say as well they are coming through a dimensional, through a dimensional doorway. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why we can't actually no evidence besides capturing on tape, you might say, like the sound of a Yeti, or the abominable snowman, or stink, or skunk ape, or like Bigfoot. Okay, it's just like it's just like with the chupacabra. Nobody has really captured the chupacabra for an example. And where did he actually start? The legends was over, was it? I think was it Costa Rica, or over in Puerto Rico? One of the two could have spread. Okay, and then you had from there went to Texas. Nobody ever really caught a chupacabra. In fact, some people even say years ago, when we were discussing that, strange creatures, is that somebody said is that even in South Florida there was so-called sightings of the chupacabra, in South Miami. So are these creatures as well coming through a dimensional, coming and going through a dimensional doorway? Here I do the seal flips. I don't know. Um, like I said, there's really no expert. Again, to my way of thinking, there is no really actual. I just lost the word. No actual evidence that they exist, only by the word of mouth, by people who said they so-called seen them. Okay. Um, like I said, it's a strange. Ufology is strange. Um, just like with okay. Let me think here. Where I want to go with this. Especially strange in the sense with MIBs. Again, I think is that I gave a good lecture on MIBs for an example. MIBs have been around again. Some people say started back in the early 50s. But some people can also say in the early and late 40s as well. In fact, let's even go back into the 20s. Okay, where people have said is that they have experienced talking to or seeing again strange people, only dressed up as so-called like FBI agents or gangsters or however you want to describe describe what these MIBs actually look like. And why do I say the 20s? Is again going back to memory banks. Is that there were UFOs again spotted back in the 20s again. Okay. Um, we look. How should I say? Is that we look at what is known to us going back. Okay, we and it all and I hate to say it, but it stems with 1947 with Roswell and Aztec, New Mexico. Who would have cared about UFOs for UFOs, or if there was or if there were aliens walking among us? Paleontologists. I said that right for a change. We're talking about dinosaurs going back millions of years, but who cares? They existed, and then boom, they disappeared off the face of the earth. And what caused their extinction? Who knows? Some people say is that the earth became, through global warming, is that the earth changed, and they couldn't survive, or that a comet hit us, or a big asteroid caused their extinction. Who knows? It's all speculation. Okay, speculation is fine. Okay, if you remember rightly, I talked about in my series on esoterics is that you have being subjective and objective. You either are in the class of being objective, to where you come up with different theories, or you are in the class of being subjective, like people in the aviary that only have one answer. It doesn't exist. You people are crazy. You're nuts. Quit talking about it because you're going to make a damn fool out of yourself. Subjective. To where if you're in the class of being objective, then you're like me and hundreds of other investigators in UFO. Excuse and UFO researchers. Okay. Uh, how many sightings have there been throughout the centuries? Thousands. In fact, the Center of UFO Studies. I'm trying to remember the person who is the head of. It's not. It's not Dr. Greer. I'm trying to remember his name for the Center of UFO Studies has come under that there's more sightings today than there has been within the last 35, 40 years. Okay. But then again, if you're being subjective, people say is, well, what you're seeing is just like the what the Air Force has been claiming all along, going back when Project Blue Book was formulated, and grunge and other projects back in the back in the 40s and 50s is that you're seeing Venus or Mars or watching a satellite on a complete clear night, that when you see all the stars and you happen to know where to set, you know, you happen to see a satellite zip by, or it was like like an asteroid zipping by, or a comet, or this or that. You know, it can't be a UFO. Or if you happen to see a meteor, you know, coming down like that, it's not a UFO. It's a meteorite, you know, burning out burning out in our atmosphere, and they'll give other, you know, other lame, not excuses, but I'm trying to think of the word. Other lame explanations. Okay, you know, it's just like all the orb pictures that have been plastered on YouTube by paranormal or ghost hunting clubs, saying is that um, this is an orb, or this is ectoplasm, or this is whatever. And then you find out is that somebody was smoking a cigarette, or they were outside taking shots when it began to rain, or or snowing, or somebody just happened to walk past the camera real damn fast, or a camera strap. You see where it's going. You see where all this is going. Again, it's lame excuses. So when somebody actually does take a real picture, say of a spirit, or capturing a UFO in the night sky, or even in the day, or even in the daylight, say that has landed in a field, and they take a picture, no one's going to believe it, because what they say is, hey, it's you know, somebody set up pin a picture on cardboard and or on wood, and put it out, you know, 35, 40 yards, and took a picture, you know, and took a picture of it to make it look like there's a real object on the ground, for a close encounter tool, for an example. Okay. So there's a lot of fake shit that goes on. There's a lot of fake shit that goes on as well. And you have to just, and the researcher and the investigator has to distinguish between the fallacy and the reality of what is and what isn't. Instead of just saying this, oh, I saw, I caught you. Again, it's just like my wife and I when we went up to the Galapagos, and I actually caught the I actually took pictures of the three UFOs that created that triangle. And then what's happened in our motel room, and finding out is that the film was taken. I mean, actual facts. Okay, it wasn't a figment of the It wasn't figment of the imagination. It wasn't dreamland. In deep sleep. It wasn't drugs or it wasn't heavy drinking to go into DTs or drug induced for an LSD trip. What actually happened? It actually happened. There was no doubt in my mind. So it was more being objective than being subjective. Okay. The Phoenix Lights, for an example, if people remember what happened in Phoenix, back in the late '90s, was that the late '90s? Yeah, just like in the late '90s, is that there was there was seven objects that caused a great stir, and people called the Air Force. What was it? The Air Force base, and they found out by information by the communications officer is that there was no maneuvers going on that night and whatever. I mean, so did what happened in Phoenix actually happen? I would have to say yes, it did. Okay. But then of course it got again you have the disinformationalists that give the bullshit. Okay. Yeah, it was the Air Force that was conducting maneuvers at that time, and they were dropping flare lanterns and this, that, and all that. And then you had the stupid governor that gave the stupid, that not only a stupid statement, but acting out by by bringing in a fake gray, to make the people look stupider than he had to within a cup, he had to come back and said hey, I should never have done it, because I believe that what actually happened, and it was my fault, okay? But one little fault like that, or one little joke like that, can negate research. Again, for being subjective, and then trying to correct it. It's like hanging somebody and say, "Oops, we made a mistake. How are we going to bring this guy back? How are we going to bring this guy alive again?" Once a mistake is made, you can't really correct it. You can in certain regards, but it's damn hard. Let me see. Billy Meyer, just like that. Oops, excuse me for 1 minute. it's hard for me to try to lower the volume. So, um, so excuse me. And the sneezing comes on just like that, as you know by watching my vids. There's nothing I can do when it hits. Um, what was I? Billy Meyer, just like to say. Is that Billy Meyer? I don't know if you heard of Billy Meyer or if you did. Let me review a little bit. Is that comes from Switzerland, and that he's been having contact with the Palladians for quite some time, and he has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of UFOs actually appearing and then again disappearing. Now, Meyer believes is that these UFOs that appear just like that are coming again through a dimensional through a dimensional doorway. Some researchers, investigators think, again, at least they're being objective about it, think is that they might be from our future of say 100, 500 years. Okay, because like I said, with these beam ships, as Meyer has classified them, is that they don't do like a regular UFO, like a regular UFO where people have seen them, uh, move up and then gone. Okay, um, but like I said, you want to do some research with Billy Meyer again, all you got to do is type in his name here on YouTube, and that you will find him. And like I said, there are some great photographs that he has taken. Of course, you can always find him on not only on YouTube with vids, but you can also find him. I think is that he has a website. He has a website as well. A lot of people have websites. Okay, Dr. Stephen Greer, who I was thinking that has been trying to get disclosure, um, to have the government disclose that UFOs are real. He has been to the Senate. I think he went not only to Congress for the science committee, but also with the Senate, as well. So he has really been fighting for disclosure. But here's the thing: don't ask what you wish. You might get what you wish for, and sometimes that wish can backfire. There has been a lot of talk within, since the election, okay, that there's going to be a disclosure, but it's going to be a red flag. Okay, a red flag. And the red flag is supposed to be like a invasion, just like the '50s movie Invasion from Mars. By the way, it's a good movie, kind of scary. When I watched it when I was a kid, it gave me nightmares for a couple of days. It gave me a few nightmares for a couple of days. Like to see it. I like to see that movie again. But like I said, so be prepared that if there's going to be disclosure, it's going to be a red flag, and that someone's going to say is, well, a UFO has actually landed. People say as well, if actually UFOs actually exist, then how come they haven't landed on the White House lawn? Well, if they go back, if the people who make that stupid statement go back and look through, do a little research, you're going to find out is that UFOs were at the White House, and they got pictures of them right at the dome of the Capitol, flying by. Okay, So you don't have to. So again, people don't have to say, well, how come? Okay. And again, with Dr. Frank Strange's with Val Thorne, just do some research. A lot of people, especially at the Pentagon, who Strange's introduced Thor to, believes that Thor was actually an EBE, and that he came here just like day the Earth stood still. When Michael Renning came down and he had, information and brought a book, I think, that was to help mankind cure many diseases, and the government didn't want any damn help. And just like with Val Thor did the same thing, came and said, "As here we got something as being ambassador from my planet to yours is yada yada. I brought you something on how to cure diseases, but you see, is that nobody wants to cure diseases. You know why? Because it's $100 billion a year moneymaker for the drug companies. They spend a little. They might spend millions doing research that they say, well, it's going to take us 25 years to conquer cancer. Just remember when Nixon. Just remember when Nixon was in office, he said he was going to have a war on cancer. Well, he had a war on cancer, but guess what? There was no cure. Why? The drug companies put a kibosh because they knew is that if they found a cure for cancer, heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, liver disease, cancer, and all the other diseases that we have, is that they be out of business, pure and simple. And naturally, you have companies who are making $100 billion a year are not going to let themselves go out of business. Excuse me, I'm going to get myself another cup of coffee. I'll be right back for this small break. I'm back. Um, so, so never going to have a cure. Even Congress today, Congress yesterday passed a bill on the Cured Disease Act. Pharmaceuticals won't allow it. Okay. Like I said, again, to reiterate, they would go out of business, and nobody who makes $100 billion a year is going to go out of damn business. So did Val Thor actually exist? According to a friend of mine, yes, and according to, after I had a talk with Dr. Strange's himself, one-on-one, when there's nobody around, he told me things, um, and yes, move this light over here, see it, there's a glare. Oops, okay, I'm going to move here a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, just want that glare getting out of the way here. Yes, I did talk to Dr. Strange's, and he told me things, and he did tell me that Val Thor existed. Is that what's the name of the spaceship that Thor lives on? Valiant One is still out Arizona, this one I got is out in the Arizona desert. You won't find it. It's just like looking for the lost Dutchman mine. Never going to find it. It's out there in Arizona, in the hills someplace, but you never find it. Okay. So yes, aliens do live among us. Many. Some people, and I gave you quite a few, and that they you just don't know it. We, you know, in fact, there was a book out many years ago. I'm trying to remember the author, but if you look it up, very good book. It's called Aliens Walk Among Us. In fact, I think there was a movie made again either in the 60s, maybe in the 70s, that has the same title, Aliens Walk Among Us. All right. Very good book. I do recommend it if you want to read about aliens on planet Earth here who are living more hush hush than actually they're out in the open, but you would never know it. Okay, they're not like MIBs. You got to remember, anybody that has an experience with MIBs like I did, not once but twice in my lifetime, is that they show up to give you a warning. Like you continue talking about UFOs, you continue, doing research with, or strange things are going to happen to you, just like with when they showed up with Ray Palmer and let's see, was and Bender, and with Palmer, Bender, and with Gray Barker. Okay, and that's the reason why Bender and Palmer got out of the UFOlogy, because of the scare tactics that MIBs actually placed upon them. It was just like, again, if with the Roswell incident, is that you had government officials, telling the townspeople, if you talk about this, is that the desert is big and you can be buried and they'll never find you. Okay. And so were these government agents, MIBs in a sense? Yes, they were. All right. And you have black-eyed kids. Again, with black-eyed kids, now my theory is on them is that I think that I mentioned when I gave for black-eyed kids for one of my videos. I think it was I did chapter 8, 7 or 8. Is that I came with the theory is that they are small MIBs. Okay, especially with the eyes. Okay, and but the children do not with the sunglasses, or they don't wear the Blues Brothers suits, with the Ray-Ban, again with the Ray-Ban sunglasses, but they show up again. Now here's the thing again, is some people say is that they have had experiences with them with black-eyed children, that they appear and all of a sudden, boop, they are gone. Just like Billy Meyer's bean ships. Do they come from a different realm? That a door had, a different dimensional plane of existence, that the door is open, and they know exactly when that door is going to open to where they can disappear, or when it's going to open to where they can appear. Okay, so that's, some people believe that. I believe is that they're small MIBs, both dangerous. All right, they are both dangerous. think if I want to go this way, if I want to go that way. I think I'll go this way, getting into abductions. I did a whole talk I did a whole talk on abductions, and abductions happen to people that either their family members have been abducted at one time or another, or if their grandparents were abducted one time or another. They just don't take people. They do not just take people randomly. Okay, like for an example, again with Travis Walton, he made the mistake of getting out of the car and getting underneath that UFO to where they did a number on him, and all of a sudden, he's wakes up inside vehicle, or it's not like, Betty and Barney Hill, um, or some other type of abductions. Okay, again, the word I'm going to use is random. I do believe is that people have been abducted before, either as children, or their parents have been abducted, or the grandparents at some point have been abducted, and so they are already chosen um, for the experience of. All right. And what happens when these people are abducted? And what happens when these people are abducted? Very simple. Now, show. Um, okay. I'm trying to look here. Well, this per the prime targets the prime targets of being abducted are those who have been spiritually weakened by heavy drug or alcohol abuse. Those whose minds and souls have been fractured by trauma. Those who inborn mind body soul structure makes them instantly prone to easy slipping into a hydronic and catatonic states where OEs can more easily be perceived. The emotionally neurotic who are easily spooked, and especially the physically sensitive who are by definition more perceptive and responsive to, and thus manipulated by the OE's audio, visual, and kinesthetic telepathic projection, which means this is all bullshit. It'd be just like somebody saying is, well, the reason why I had a bad experience when I used the Ouija board is because I'm drunk. Well, that's true. Or because, as I said, like attracts like. You're in a bad mood, you're going to have spirit that has been in a bad mood. And so like attracts like. Or you took some type, or you've been on some type of medication, whatever. All right. So, I do feel again is that the people who have been abducted have been abducted when they were children, or again their parents, or again the grandparents had abduction episodes. And again, I can talk about what happens during an abduction, Well, of course, is that if you're a male, they're going to do some extracting, like semen and other nasty things. Or if you're a woman, they're going to extract eggs from the ovaries. They could impregnate. The woman could become impregnated. Uh, Implants again, like you would have an implant for a dog. Um, if the dog is lost, you just you know um, find it because there's I'm trying to think of the word the a little device has been implanted to where you can find the animal. Um, so there's a lot of things that actually happen, and people say as well, gee, I like to be abducted. No, you don't. I mentioned is that I had some people I talked to that actually had the abduction experience, and it was not fun. It was not fun um, for them to have that type of experience. You know, it's like being kidnapped. You know, for ransom. You know that your chances of the ransom being paid, and if it is paid, you're going to die anyways, and that's an FBI statistic. And the reason why they murder you is because you recognize either their voice, or they might be wearing a mask or something, but you can still recognize the voice, the height, the weight, the size of shoes, and if there's any type of tattoos or anything like that. So that's the reason why your life expectancy, if the ransom is met, is not great. On the other hand, with human abduction with aliens, is that they want to keep you around because now you are fodder to them. Okay, as to be harvested, and it's just like with the pharmaceuticals. They're not going to give up $1 billion a year as to find diseases, so they're not so the abductors are not going to murder you. Um, they want you to be, again, the word is fodder for them, you might say. Um, I want to talk about a little bit on the white light. I know is that I did a lot of talking on the subject in my first video, my first chapter for esoterics. But I'm gonna change this just a little bit. All right. Two things that people talk about the white light is how to have somebody cross over, get them into the white light, and let it become like an elevator that they can advance themselves into a higher realm, or with the white light when a person passes. And I didn't mention this, is that some people now believe is that the white light is not conducive to get into, is because it's like a grid has been set up with your spiritual body, you might say, and a lot of these aliens use the white light as how should I say, to get you into it so they can actually steal your essence. Okay, I do. I've been pondering that for quite. I've been pondering that for quite some time. Is it true? Is that you actually that the white light? I do know is what I talked about by the white light. You do not get into into it like elevator as to progress upwards as to for a crossover. Okay, and I think I explained that pretty well. As for again, as for aliens to set up a grid and to get you into the white light as to steal your essence, I can I don't believe that. Like I said, the only way that you can from dark to light, okay, all the white light is, to my way of thinking, like I said, is that I really talked about that in chapter one in my esoteric series, is that you have to have a balance, dark light, night day, all right, and that the white light is there just to show your way. If you believe, like when you're on the other side is to walk a path, then the white light is to get you to started on that journey down that path. But as to progress you upwards, no. As to get you into it as to steal your essence, I don't think so. I think, again, nobody has come back, and nobody has come back and told me or any other medium, either mental or physical, that they had the experience of being caught in this white light that a lot of people talk about again with the aliens with a grid. Okay. Uh, so again, it's like it's like disinfo disinformationalist bunch of shit. All right. Um, that's all I wanted to say on with again with the white light. Um, I do feel this as I do feel this um, is that there will be a disclosure, but it's going to be a disclosure that's going to be subtle. It's not going to be like a UFO has landed on the White House lawn and all of a sudden the door opens and Michael Rennie comes out with Gort. It ain't going to happen. Okay, it ain't going to happen. I think is that how it's going to be. I think that how it's going to be resolved with full disclosure is that the CIA and also military intelligence will have a news conference and say, as ladies and gentlemen, since the day of Roswell and Aztec, New Mexico, with all the investigations that have been going on throughout the years with those two sites, yes, we have kept things from the public, and the reason why is yada yada yada. But now it has been decided to bring it out because we feel is that as the public, you have number one the right to know, and number two, you're mature enough that as to understand is that yes, there is life on other planets, and we have had contact with just like with the presidents, like with Kennedy and Nixon, um, Carter, in the sense is that Eisenhower, Eisenhower actually had meetings with aliens at a so-called secret Air Force base in California. A lot of people say, "Oh, that was Area 51." No, it wasn't Area 51. I'm trying to think of the name of the. It wasn't Wright Patterson because Wright Patterson is not in California, is it? in Cincinnati. It starts. I'll tell you in a minute. Hey, God damn it. Dallas. Dallas Air Force Base in California. All right. Kennedy also had dealings with UFOs and having discussions with aliens. In fact, I mentioned in chapter 15 that there has been with the Kennedy assassination. Um, People say it was is that Lyndon Baines Johnson wanted to get rid of Kennedy because Kennedy was going to open doors that were not going to be allowed to be open. But it I think it was because one of the doors was because having confabs with alien intelligence, with with the maybe with the secret, maybe with the deals that were made between the United States and a particular alien race. Um, I think that's just one of them, and I think is that, and I mentioned the A, and I think is that working with MJ12 Ultra is that, well, Ultra has been, I should clarify here a little bit, with it used to be just called MJ12, but within the last few years they have classified themselves as MJ Ultra because of all the scientific studies they have done with ESP and telepathy. I mean, with I don't like to use the word ESP. We'll call it HSP, telepathy, remote viewing type of, different things, and for mind, in fact, for mind control. All right. To make people become zombies at Manchurian, the Manchurian candidate, if you will. All right. So, anyways, with Kennedy, there has been assumptions is that he was murdered. Um, is that he gave these are just assumptions. He is that Kennedy gave information to Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe kept a diary, and brother Bobby, the asshole, um, had Marilyn murdered on account of the damn diary that she kept with information that brother Jackie was giving to her, especially on alien encounters. So it wasn't just that Jack wanted to change, get rid of the Federal Reserve, because presidents throughout the years have tried that stunt, and they weren't really murdered on account of that. It wasn't, to my way of thinking, is that Johnson. They say Johnson was the head of the conspiracy to assassinate Kennedy on account of that, with the military industrial complex wanted to keep the war, that Kennedy wanted to get us out of Vietnam, and Johnson wanted to keep us in Vietnam, and by Kennedy's assassination he could do exactly that, with continuing giving money through the military, through the Pentagon to the military industrial complex. A great possibility. Um, it wasn't again on account of getting rid of the IRS. I think that Trump is going to take care of that with I think is that with the Federal Reserve, is that Trump is going to take care of that. And I don't think that he's going to be shot or assassinated on account of that. I don't think is that Trump has had any deal with any type of EBEs like the presidents, like Eisenhower and Kennedy. So I do believe that Kennedy was assassinated on account of that he knew too much because of the interaction that he had with particular alien races. Like I said, that's how Carla Turner was murdered. Dorothy Kilgallen was murdered. Um, Bill Schneider was murdered. Bill Cooper, they say that Bill Cooper was murdered. I mean, was shot because he fought against the IRS. He wasn't going to pay his taxes. Well, I don't think that the IRS was going to shoot him. There was more to it than that. Bill Cooper, like I said, through Behold a Pale Horse, is that he knew a hell of a lot what was going on, especially with the so-called the Illuminati. It wasn't called the New World Order then, but with the Illuminati and what their plans were with the United States. Now, the Illuminati, on the other hand, has had dealings with EBEs for since the early early 1700s with Westphal, um, coming from Bavarian and the Bavarian Illuminati. Okay, uh, so I feel that's how Kennedy was assassinated because he knew too much. With Nixon, Nixon knew about, and I mentioned about Nixon also had not dealings per. I don't think he had actual dealings per se with EBEs, but he did know is that an EBE was in Homestead, Florida, because he took Jackie Gleason to view the Indian cased body. Jackie Gleason, throughout the years, actually mentioned it a few times. Of course, what they did with Nixon, excuse me, again, see, I never know what's going to happen. With Nixon, they did get him again in a different sort of light, and that was with what? Watergate. And he had to resign. Okay? With Jimmy Carter, is that Carter said that he only had a close encounter of the first kind. You had Clinton said the same thing with close encounter of the first kind that he had. You had Bush. Bush might have had dealings with EBE. Um, that is a big question mark. Since Bush was in CIA, was director of CIA, he would have all the skinny on that. So, but he never really even mentioned that he saw any type of UFO. Bush too, I think he said he saw with a CE1 with Obama. I think that one time he did mention, and then with Trump who's coming in, I don't think he had anything of any type of encounters. But again, it goes back to Kennedy. All right. So I don't think is that Trump is going to be assassinated, trying to get rid of the Federal Reserve or the IRS. Okay, he'll put a kibosh on both the organizations, but he's not going to be. I don't think anybody's going to assassinate him in that sense. Again, So there has been a lot of, again, a lot of speculation, again, and I'm going to say it one more time, with Kennedy. And it was, and I feel that it was due to MJ12 Ultra. All right. Uh, since MJ12 Ultra has given their own security classification, being the highest of, I think, there's somebody said one time that top secret was the highest, but it's just like in in the Freemasons, is that people think is that 33rd degree is the highest. No, wrong. There are 99 degrees in the Freemasons. Okay, so it's just like with secret classification, is that I think somebody said there's 21 different types of higher classifications than just top secret, and MK12 created them. Okay, so even the president doesn't, because only the president might have top secret, but he's not in the 20. He's not in the highest classification there is, which is classification 21. If that's true. So, and I do remember is that Secretary of Defense Forrestal under was it Truman? Yeah, I think it was Truman that was assassinated, because he was going to come out, because Forrestal was going to come out with information as a disclosure of what was supposedly going on at this secret, Area 51, at Area 51. But I looked at it this way. I think that Area 51 was created in the not in the late 40s, but in the early 50s. 50 what was it? 52, 50 to 52, something like that. So I don't think is that I don't think is that they with the crash with the crash landing at Aztec, having almost a UFO in condition would be sent to Area 51 before Area 51 was created. So it had to go to a secret base again out in California, and I think that secret base was which I mentioned. I could be wrong, but I don't. But if I remember rightly, my history on that, I don't think is that 51 was created until after 40, either in really in 49, 50, as a secret as a secret base, because, and I'll give you the reason why, is that because I think is that Parsons with the JPL, Jack Parsons Laboratory in California was doing was working with secret rocket fuel back in 54, maybe between 54 and 55, when he had when he was how should I say, murdered. And I will say that Parsons, I think, was murdered when his laboratory did explode on him with the rocket fuel that he was creating. is that, and the rocket fuel was sent to 51 by what they were working on with the type of jets that they were working on, or what for the type of jets that they were working on over there back in the 50s. So I think that has been I think with it again. A lot of information has been disinformational with Area 51. All right, especially at the beginning of the creation of the facility itself. Okay. Real quick here, as to end the review of things that I feel that I missed that I'm now getting. Yeah, let me see here. Talked about that. Talked about that. Talked about that. I guess that's it. I guess my review of ufology is complete now. It doesn't mean is that opening the door to the unknown will now just kind of fade away like like Douglas MacArthur. Old soldiers don't die; they just fade away. I'm going to continue, but I don't think I'm going to be calling it opening the door to the unknown. I got a few titles that I'm still kicking around, and one of them is "You Gotta Be Kidding, You Gotta Be Kidding Me, Department." What the fuck, Department? Um, let's see. "You Gotta Be Kidding Me, Department." What the fuck, Department? And one or two more that I'm kind of just throwing around in my noggin here. It's going to be quite interesting. I'm going to be talking about the mysterious. Okay, it's not going to be on esoterics in the sense. It's not going to be talking about ufology in the sense. It's going to be talking about like strange disappearances and getting into zoology with creatures, getting into oh gosh, something like the Skinwalker Ranch. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I'm just slowly putting like I said, I'm just slowly trying to create a name, because once I create a title, is that all of a sudden ideas or information will come to me, and of what I want to talk about. And like I said, so within the next couple of weeks, within the next month, maybe after the first of the year, you will see it's going to be on the same channel, but it's just going to be a different name. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed the lectures on the esoterics and also on ufology. I hope that you learned something. Like I said, if you want to do a little bit more research, like I said, there's a lot of good new. I can't really say new information, is because with ufology, it's the same old information. Okay, with the abductions, with EBEs, with Area 51 with Area 51 getting into back engineering, with so-called flying saucers. Um, I'm trying to think here. again, subjects that I have talked about through chapter 1 to chapter 15. Now, like I said, you've got more information now, to drink in, and to do research. Okay. Like I said, so I hope that you have liked my series so far. And like I said, within a few weeks, after the first of the year, you will hear, um, grand opening, if you will, of a new title, and I might even call it the mysterious and strange. I might use that. I just might use that, the mysterious and strange. I'll work on that. Okay. Anyways, um, I hope I didn't take too much of your time watching this lecture. So with that, I'm going to say is have Christmas is coming up. New Year's is coming up. So have a great on both of them. And until then, bye bye.